The biggest source of a HIPAA violation is your employees. Sure, you hold compliance trainings every year and have postings all throughout your office that give examples of what to do and what not to do in order to ensure patient information doesn't get leaked. However, the most common type of HIPAA violation caused by your employees is by oversharing information. Specifically, what I'm referring to is talking about patients using their name or sharing their personal information in some capacity. Here are a few examples of what I mean. Asking them for information out loud during their check-in process, calling them by their full name to their front desk in your waiting room, leaving patient charts laying around on desks within view, creating a bulletin board that welcomes new clients using their names and address, gossiping about patients in online forums or to other employees. Each of those examples are arguably HIPAA violations and could lead to serious consequences for your organization. So how do you ensure that your team isn't oversharing sensitive information by accident? Hi everyone, I'm Matt from eTactics, and today I'm going to tell you 3 super simple ways to stop oversharing sensitive patient information. Before we get started though, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel by clicking the button below. While you're down there, hit that alert bell icon next to it as well, so when we post new helpful content, you get notified. Sometimes practices get so caught up in trying to have the best, most personable patient experiences possible that they forget about some of the more intricate details of the HIPAA privacy rule. But that regulation is one of the most important aspects to keep in mind for your practice above everything else other than care. The first way to stop oversharing starts as soon as a patient walks into your doors with the patient intake form in hand. This is a very sensitive document. It contains a lot of prompts and areas asking for your patient to include protected health information, or PHI. Once they get this form, they'll go back to your waiting room, fill it out, and hand it to your front desk employee. At this point, the employee will confirm the information that the patient just filled out while they're standing there. Now this is a risky situation, believe it or not. If your employees or the patient talks too loudly during this process, they could inadvertently give out their sensitive information to the entire waiting room. In order to avoid this entirely and enhance how your practice runs, host these intake forms online and prompt your patients to fill them out before they come in for their appointment. That way, you can ensure a secure transfer of sensitive information and you won't risk your staff accidentally giving out that sensitive information to your entire waiting room. There are other moments throughout the day where you may have to get your patient's attention. Of course, what I'm referring to here specifically is when you're ready to bring them back into the exam room. You likely have a staff member, aide, or nurse who calls patients back, checks their vitals, and leads them to their room. It's imperative during this time that when this individual calls for a client sitting at your waiting room, that they don't call that person by their full name. Although small, this is actually a breach of privacy. Instead, train this employee to only call for people by their first name, which is our second simple way to stop oversharing patient information. Of course, certain instances might arise where people in your waiting room share the same name. If this occurs, the simplest solution is to include middle initials in your callouts as well. Doing this isn't as compromising. It's also possible that a patient may take offense when they're called out by their first name only. The last thing you want to do is offend anybody right before their appointment. In order to avoid this situation, add titles to your callouts. Referring to someone as Ms. or Mr. adds a nice, respectful flair to trying to find a client when you're ready to see them. Lastly, let's talk about your work environment. Have you ever walked around an office and couldn't help but peek at the documents laying on the desks as you continue down the hallways? Of course, when we do this, it isn't malicious. We're just naturally curious. This also means that your patients do too. In other words, another super simple way to stop oversharing any sensitive data is by making sure your employees keep their workstations clean. That way, there's no need to worry about a patient accidentally looking at someone else's PHI while you try to sleep at night. One of the places that often gets forgotten about in this situation is the copier room. Your team needs to make sure that if they print something, they have full intentions to walk to the printer immediately. Having stacks of printed paper with PHI on it is just sitting on a shelf or anything like that is essentially asking for a breach. Oversharing patient information happens all the time. It's a common occurrence. Most practices don't even realize it when it happens. But it's still very much a HIPAA violation that could cost your organizations thousands of dollars in fines. However, it doesn't require a lot of time or money in order to prevent this type of violation, and these were just a few simple steps that you could implement today and immediately see results. If you'd like to learn more about simple ways to stop oversharing patient information, reach out to eTactics. And you already made this far into the video, so you might as well like it, share it, and comment below. Well, what are you waiting for? Subscribe to our YouTube channel.